Okay, so let's talk about repurposing graphics. And you are going to need some kind of graphics editor or creator. And many of you may either have Photoshop, right, that you got with Creative Cloud, or maybe you got to have the Photoshop subscription. I think the Photoshop subscription is $10 a month, more than worth it if you're going to be doing graphics on a regular basis. A number of you already have something called Usign, right? Some of you will have Usign, and some of you will use GIMP or paint.net. It really doesn't matter. What we're going to be going through are the functions, right, that you'll want to be able to go through regardless of what graphics creator you're using. So let's go through a few of these things. One thing that I want to say up front is that whenever you're going to buy PLR and you have the opportunity to get the source files, you want to buy those. And there's almost as much value in the source files as there is inside of the content once you understand how to repurpose, right? So if in some cases the source files are going to come as part of the upsell or the advance or the upgrade, when possible, you want to get those. You want to get those files because they really will allow you to reuse them in some ways that you can't reuse even some of the other content, and they allow you to add some versatility to all of your other content. We're going to show you that here in this session. So in other words, you need to look at graphics as the same as you look at content. Right, so good graphics. If you see a package, and the graphics look fantastic, and maybe you have some questions about the content, still evaluate getting that package because the graphics are really going to serve you well if you're going to be creating your own products, if you're going to be taking other products that you have resale rights to and rebranding them, if you're going to be creating information products of any kind, whether they be physical or digital, good graphics are going to serve you well. So again, you can, if you see a good package of graphics, and even if you have questions about the actual underlying video or the underlying text, right? If the price to you makes sense, you can get that package just for the graphic. And what you want to think about is, how am I going to use these graphics for other purposes? So again, I'm not talking about rebranding. I'm not talking about adding your adding your name and logo. I'm talking about using these graphics for some of the other purposes. And we're going to start by working with the source file. And I'm going to open up Photoshop, and I'm going to do that for a particular reason when we start talking about working with the source file. So I'm going to go to my taskbar. I'm just going to pull up Photoshop here. And when I go into Photoshop and I'm going to be looking for the source file, I'm going to go ahead and open up a source file from a PLR package. And let's say that I'm going to open up the flat design for a particular product. And I'm going to show you why working with this source file is probably going to be the most important thing. I'm not going to resolve this round. I'm not going to work with those right now. So if I go inside of this particular source file, this particular PLR product, you're going to notice that it has layers, right? There's a layer for the text. There is, and if I do away with one particular layer, you're going to see part of the graphic disappear. If I click on part of these different layers, you'll see different parts of this disappear. So each layer does represent something that you're going to be using, and we want to be able to alter these layers, because by altering these layers, that's one of the ways that we can actually change the entire graphic. So for example, if I were to take out this layer, right, and I were to, let's say first what I was going to do, I'm going to duplicate this layer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the previous layer. So all I have is I have the layer, it's copied on here, and I'm going to now just kind of change this, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change, I'm going to change this color just a little bit. I'm going to blend this a little bit to change the color, right? And so everything that I do, I mean, if I want to change this color and I want to put another layer in there, I can change this entire graphic just by changing a particular layer, right? And so working with the source file allows me to change the base of the graphic. And so this is why I want the PSD file. I want the source file. I want to be able to change the base of the graphic. Let's say I don't like the PC so much, right? And I decide I want to take that PC out. I want to take all the other stuff out. What I want to do is I want to add in another layer, and I want to add in a different image, right? So let's say I'm just going to grab. Let's say I just grab an image from my pictures here, and let's say that I go and I grab this one, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all. I'm going to copy merge, and then I'm going to put that graphic right on top of this layer, right? So I'm going to size this down. I'm going to bring that layer inside of here. Let's size this back up. And so by being able to work with the PSD file, I can change the base of the graphic. And that's what I want to be able to do, right? I want to be able to change the base of this graphic to make it what I want. And so part of this is going to be understanding how to work with Photoshop, but part of this is just understanding that by getting the source file, you can then change the base graphic. And you can make this graphic to be what you want it to be. And that's what we need to be able to do. Regardless of what graphic editor you use, you need to be able to change the source graphic when you get, right? Because that's going to be the core of being able to repurpose graphics. Once I'm able to make this source graphic to be what I want it to be, well, then I can start making changes that I want to make, right? So, for example, one thing I can do is work with JPEG and PNG files, and you can see that here, right? So basically, one of the things that I can do, let's just say that I just want to use another PNG file that I have. I'm just going to get rid of this one, and I'm going to go and pick up another one, right? So let's just say I'm going to go and pick up another one. Here's a PNG file, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all. We're going to copy merge, and then we're just going to add this to another layer. So again, that's one way that I can work with PNG files inside of my graphic editor. Another way I can work with my graphic files or my PNG files inside of my graphic editor is to create something that's all new. So let's just say that what I wanted to do is I wanted to create something entirely new. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a new canvas. Let's do this. I'm going to start a brand new canvas. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that canvas transparent. Right? Let's make it transparent. And then let's make it pretty wide. So let's say we're going to make this about 2,000 pixels wide. And let's make it 600 or let's make it 700 high. Okay, so I'm going to create this canvas. Right, so I've got a nice wide canvas. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a layer here, and then I'm going to grab one of the images. Right, so I'm going to grab this PNG image. We're going to select it, and we're going to copy it onto our canvas. Right, so basically I've got one image here that I've started to work with. I can add in another image. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab the other image now. And this is how I can work with different images that maybe were not related, but I can actually add them together inside of Photoshop. So again, I'm going to copy and merged. I'm going to add them into another layer. Right? Let's size this down. And let's maybe size this down to 25%. So basically, as long as I understand that I can open up a canvas, I can mix and match any two images that I want, but I can do that inside of Photoshop by creating a canvas, right? So basically, as long as I can create a canvas, I can use any two sets of graphics that I want and combine them in any way that I need to, right? So working with JPEG and PNG files really is as simple as being able to bring them together onto a canvas. Right, is everybody with me on that? So if you get that, please put the number 3 in the question box if you understand what I just did. Okay, if you don't, feel free to ask questions. Okay, so now let's go to the next phase here. And let's say that what I wanted to do was I'm going to do an affiliate promotion. And so what I want to do is I want to take the graphics that I have, my PLR graphics, and I want to change them though. I want to now use them for a bonus, right? So if I have the rights to use the graphics, and this time I'm going to open up something different. Let's close up these. Let's close these graphics. And let's say that what I want to do is I want to be able to get and use this PSD file, but I want to be able to use it as a bonus for a product that I'm going to be doing an affiliate promotion for, right? But I got this, let's say, with a particular product, right? So I'm going to open this up now. I'm not going to update the layers, but so let's say that the name of the product was something different, right? Let's say that it was Extreme Accelerated. Let's say it was Extreme Accelerated. Okay, so what I would do is I would then want to go and talk and work with the title, right? So I'm gonna take this E out. You'll see that disappear. I'm gonna click on this coaching, and I'm now going to write in here something different, entirely different. And I'm going to go to this one that's called Success. And I'm going to write in something entirely different. Right? I'm going to write in Accelerated. I'm going to squeeze this a little. Okay, what we're going to let's squeeze this in. We can get rid of that. Let's get rid of that exclamation point there. Right, and so basically what I can do now is I can now use this graphic for something that I'm going to be promoting a bonus for. Now that's probably half of the most important thing. The other most important part is going to be that I'm going to be able to use Photoshop graphics, Photoshop actions for this, and that's what I want to be able to use. I want to be able to take an action, and I want to be able to take this base graphic and use it with that Photoshop action. And so the Photoshop action is actually what's going to help me to create the 3D graphic. So I'm going to go inside of one of my Photoshop actions. I'm then going to click Create. And it's going to create the basic 3D graphic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a layer on top of here. I'm now going to copy. I'm going to select all this, and then we're going to copy it. And we're going to put that image right on top there. We're going to stretch this out a little bit. We're now going to add in another layer. I'm going to make the binding white, binding to the box white. And so I'm going to just paint this white. And so now my binding is ready. So all I have to do now is I have to render the box. And once the action renders, then I have a new box. Right? So basically I can take any PLR graphic that I like the look of it, and then I can then take it and place it inside of an action. Okay, so Carlos's question is, how are you rendering the box? Okay, great question. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use what is called a Photoshop action. And the Photoshop action first allows me to create the shape of a box. So let me go back out here. So I'm going to, let me take these out. So when I first create the Photoshop action, this is what comes onto the canvas, box 2, right? So it comes on there all by itself. And this is something that I actually go and purchase. In this particular case, I purchased this from Cover Action Pro, right, is what I purchased. And I think what I will probably do is I will show you how to get them either from there or from someplace else. But basically, you do need to have Photoshop actions. You need to have Photoshop actions in order to do that. Once you create the action, you then go in the action inside of Photoshop, and then you render that action. So for example, let's just say that I didn't put any of the graphics onto this action. All I did was I clicked this play button. And what's going to happen now is that when I hit the play button on the render area, it's going to render this box, but it's not going to render it with any graphics. It's just going to render it plain, right? Okay, but if I go back, and what I do is I bring back my graphic designs or my PSD files, and then I render the box again, right? It should render it as the box that I want it to be. So again, I can take any PLR graphic and I can place it inside of the Photoshop action. So what's the most important part to this? Well, the most important part is that I have something that I can change the nature of it here, and then I can add it to the Photoshop action. I can add it to the Photoshop action and then render it. Now, one of the reasons why I like using the Photoshop action or the PSD file is because I don't have to then worry about sizing, right? The Photoshop document or PSD file will adjust to the action. And so I don't have to play around with the settings, and I can keep focused on creating the design without having to worry about sizing, right? So in other words, okay, so let me get rid of the box for a second. Let's just say that what I wanted to do was I wanted to place the a PNG file on top of here. Let's just say that I created a layer, and what I went to do is I went to get one of the Photoshop layers. Let's just say I went to get this one. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this. I'm going to copy it. I'm now going to place this inside of the box. Now I want now what's happening here is that you notice that this is an exact size. So let's just say that what I wanted to do now is I wanted to adjust the size of this, right? I want to adjust the size of this. Well, what would I do? I'd go here and I'd create the handles and I'd stretch this. I'd stretch it out. And now I'm going to just click this. Now the problem with this is that it's going to pixelate, right? So in other words, if I just render this document as is, part of the graphic is going to be slightly distorted because of the sizing, right? So I want to be able to size it right. I want to be able to use the Photoshop document because it will adjust to the nature of the action. Okay, so you can see some slight pixelation here, and that's mainly because of the sizing of the graphic. Now let's say that what I want to do is I want to be able to reuse graphics for presentations, and one of the things that again your PLR graphics will be useful for is that you can create very easily, right? You can create very easily some great backgrounds for your PowerPoint. And again, this doesn't have to be elaborate, but it's something very simple that you can do. And the better your graphics, right, the better that your background's going to be, right? So all we have to do is when we go inside of Photoshop here, or go inside of PowerPoint here, is we're now going to just picture fill, right? And I'm going to grab the file, right? I can get any file that I want. I'm going to use this one. Right, then all I've got to do is I've got to increase the transparency. And again, this then becomes a very simple way of being able to create a background that's peculiar to your subject or your product. Right, so if you don't have anything but the PLR graphics and you're not a designer, well, you want to take the design that's already done. You want to make sure that the writing in here reflects what you want it to be. Take your PowerPoint presentation and then just picture fill it so that it reflects the image. Right? Is everybody with me there? Okay, does that make sense? So if you get that, please put the number 5 in the question box. Right, great. We can do the same thing with Microsoft Word. Obviously, right, it's the same process, right, with Microsoft Word. I don't have Word open, so let's just go in here. We'll just open up Microsoft Word. It's going to be pretty much the exact same process. And I think that I can do this with the design. And this time I'm going to use the watermark. And we're going to custom watermark. We're going to do a picture watermark. Excuse me, we're going to do that. We're going to do that now from a file. We're going to grab our bundle picture here. And we're just going to click apply. Right, then there's our background, right, or our watermark. Right, so again, as long as we have a good looking graphic, we can create a watermark for any of our documents. And of course then, this will then help us if we just create a PDF with this, right? So if we just save this as a PDF, right, let's save this as test PDF. Right, it's going to take a minute here to create it. And you can see now inside of our PDF we have our image right in the background. Right? We can create a document in Word, and we can do that with our graphics. So the key again is going to be being able to make that PSD into what we want it to be. Okay, so we've done it for presentations, we've done it for documents. We can reuse the graphics for videos, right? So for example, one of the things that we can do inside of Camtasia is we can then import a graphic into our timeline, right? So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my pictures. I'm going to import this bundle graphic. What I'm going to do is I'm then going to right-click it, and I'm going to add it to my library, right? So here's my bundle, right? So now what I'm going to do? Well, what I'm going to do then is I'm now going to add this to the timeline. Okay, and so basically now what I can do inside of my on the screen of my video is I can have this image that I created show up as long as I need it to. Right? As long as I want to have this on the timeline, I can just stretch it out here. But again, everything starts with being able to alter that base graphic and then being able to create the PNG file. Right? So all this is appearing right here is going to be a PNG file that I have inside of the video. And of course, I can repurpose all of those same graphics for anything on social media or on YouTube. I mean, the place where you're going to see this show up. Let's kind of talk about. I'm going to show you this here. Most of the time, as long as you as long as you will place a thumbnail on your video, you're going to get more views, right? That's I wouldn't say it's an exact, right? It's not you're going to go from, I'd say 0 to, to 700, but in general, when you add in a graphic that makes sense, what's going to happen is, and I'm just going to go inside of my Creator Studio here. We're just going to pick a graphic. We're just going to pick a video. Let's say that we pick this video. And all we did was we just grabbed this thumbnail. So when I go and I take a look at that video, all right, let's save the changes. I look at my video manager. Okay, here's my thumbnail. So again, everything starts with being able to change the base graphic, and you change the base graphic to whatever you want it to be by using the PSD file. And that is why you always want to get the source file, because the source file will allow you to easily change something that's going to shape into whatever you want it to be inside of Photoshop.